But then on the third day, the stone was rolled away, the tomb was empty, and God vindicated Jesus. And because of the resurrection, we are a part of this revolution that began with Jesus. And then there was a small group of folks who lived in this revolutionary spirit. And then in the book of Acts on Pentecost, all of these thousands of people from different parts of the world, different ethnicities, different languages, men and women, all sorts of people. The revolution that we have been a part of has not always been just perfect, but God has nonetheless carried us along, and we are a part of this revolution begun by Jesus. The Latin revolutio means to turn around. And so to be a part of a revolutionary movement is to have God turn us around in some new directions. It might be a drip, drip, drip from a faucet, or it might be dynamic and fast. But whatever it is, God is in the business of working with us in this revolution to turn the way that we see the world around. Last Sunday, we talked about why change is so hard for most of us, maybe even all of us. Some of us say that we embrace change, but change is a difficult thing. Change is the one constant in life, along with death and taxes. And most of us don't welcome change any more than we welcome death and taxes. Change is a very, very difficult thing. And yet without change, there is no growth. Without change, organisms begin to die. Without change, the church dies. Without change, we die. William Bridges put together kind of a scenario for transition and change. And as you think about your own journey of trying to deal with change, this might be a helpful scenario. It has been for me. We begin with an ending, a losing, a letting go. So we have something really important to us. Maybe it's something that we've really thought was important in the church, or maybe in our workplace or our family, and we've got to somehow end it, let it go in order to move along. Then we move into what is called the neutral zone, which is also a deadly place. The neutral zone, people hear something new, a new mission, new values, new whatever. That's just more words. And where do I fit in this? What does this mean? There's even hostility to new ideas that emerges in the neutral zone. And when we introduce change, different people move at different paces. And you might be in the neutral zone in whatever part of your life, and it's a dangerous place because you hope you can get to the next place, which is the new beginning, but it takes a lot of work. We are suggesting that we are in the process of moving toward a new beginning, a new direction, some new ministries, some new places to do ministry. And that is not always an easy thing, especially in the church, especially in my experience in a Lutheran church. Hernan Cortes in 1549 brought his fleet of ships from Spain, and they landed, and all of the crew got off the ships and started to go into the mainland, and Cortes sent two of his staff, if you will, back to the boats and told them to burn them. Burn the boats. There's no way to go back. You're either going to stay where you are and die, or you're going to move forward with change and see what the future has to bring. I think there are some boats in the church that need to be burned. They need to be burned to the ground and never used again. There was a time when it was good for them to set sail, but I think it's time for some of the boats, some of the ships to be burned so that we are perhaps forced to move forward. It doesn't make sense. The new idea, the new thing, the new stuff that people are saying, we want to get on the ship and go back to wherever, and since the ship has been burned and it doesn't make sense, what are we going to do? How are we going to move ahead? How are we going to manage change? How are we going to see things differently as we move into the future? Some people will say, it's impossible. We can't do that. We've always done it this way. Those are just a bunch of words. Not really going to impact us. It's really kind of an impossible thing to do, so I'm just going to write it off. Well, Nelson Mandela, who was in prison for 20-some years, said something about the impossible that I think we ought to embrace in our congregation. It always seems impossible until it's done. There are always people who lag behind and say, that's impossible, can't be done. But then it's done, and the impossible has become the possible. And as Jesus said, with God, all things are possible, even in a congregation that can be fairly comfortable, even fairly averse to change. And that can be any congregation anywhere in the United States or the world. So this is the new emphasis that we're working with in terms of our mission, revealing God through revolutionary relationships. One of the things I want you to know is that this is not a critique of anything that has come before. It's not. It's just a new way of imagining and using language and a turning of phrase, revealing God through revolutionary relationships. Say it with me one time. Revealing God through revolutionary relationships. We hope that you can continue to noodle on that and maybe begin to see it as more than words. We're working through values. Barry and I are during our preaching series in Lent, and we laid them out last week, and I want to briefly put them out again for you to be thinking about. Last week, a Christ-centered culture. Jesus is our focus and the compass that directs our lives. This week, an intentionally inclusive approach. All are welcomed. All means all. We'll be into that in just a minute or so. An attitude of abundance. Next week we'll explore that. We give our time, talents, and resources deliberately, generously, and with gratitude. Traditioned innovation. We embrace change while honoring our heritage. That's another good thing for the church to try to work and to embrace. And finally, an intersection of God's story and ours. God is active in our lives today, and we want to celebrate that and focus on that. It's often the case that as we live from day to day, we're not exactly focused, whether it's in our work or our key relationships, and we're not always able to see metaphorically or literally as well as we would like to. So last week we suggested that we can move from lack of focus to focus when we see that Jesus is our focus and the cross is in the center. When Jesus is our focus, our compass, we see everything differently. We see the world differently. We see our relationships differently. All because Jesus is our focus and our compass. Jesus invites us to reframe our reality, our relationships, to see it differently, to think of it differently, to just kind of look and say, is there a different way that I can see the world because Jesus is my focus? So this morning, the second of our values, an intentionally inclusive approach. All are welcomed, and all means all. So program staff got together, and we were trying to think of an image that might work for the all means all idea. And so you have all of these crayons, and they are different colors, and they're sort of stacked together. And the multicolor thing can mean anything you want it to mean. But there they are. And if you take a look at the, let's see, right there, that sort of bluish-gray crayon, if you pulled that from that little formation, what would happen? The whole thing would fall apart. So we need each other. We need every one of each other to be as strong as we can. Here's some other words we use with welcome: all sizes, all colors, cultures, sexes, beliefs, religions, ages, types, people. So all means all, and all are welcome is something that I say all the time, because I think it's a value that is worth embracing. From time to time, there will be people who will say to me, you know, Pastor, you say all means all and all are welcome, but that's not really true. That's not really the congregation we are. My response is to say, all right, you're right. What are you going to do about it? You're right. How are you going to make it different? You're right. Can you live into an all means all mentality, or are you just going to sit in the back and take pot shots? Stop it. If you want to be critical of this aspirational value, then do something about it. You can change it. You can be a part of it. Not so much, well, we continue to work on what it means to do that. There is the golden rule, and as we think about welcoming somebody, and as we think of an all means all mentality, Platinum rule is this: do unto others as they would have you do unto them. In other words, get into their moccasins. Ask them what they need from you. Stop talking and start listening to what somebody might like for you to express as a way of loving them and welcoming them.
Are you seriously considering her as a candidate?
Just don't trust
She's a woman.
She's a woman.
This is a man's
She's
job.
clearly not educated.
Really? Does she even speak English?
That's not me. I'm not like that. You call it an honest mistake. Science calls it a blind spot. Our unconscious mind is a mysterious and powerful thing. It makes 90% of our decisions without us even knowing it. Our brains are overloaded with 11 million pieces of information every second. Yet we can only process about 40 of them. So we're wired to make cognitive shortcuts, using past experiences to make assumptions. And you know what happens when we assume? Our unconscious mind can put us on autopilot, determining where we sit, who we eat lunch with, who we turn to for advice, and who we choose to offer a helping hand. Living our lives with blind spots can put us in a tunnel. Same point of view, same decisions, same outcomes. We can find ourselves trapped in the land of snap judgments and misconceptions. We've all been on both the giving and receiving end of blind spots.
I don't know if you heard the term cognitive shortcut, but it's a good term. The cognitive shortcuts we take because we don't really want to try to figure out the complexities of somebody who is. We don't necessarily want to do the hard work of trying to figure out where somebody came from. We don't really want to do the hard work of trying to figure out what it means that not all African Americans are the same, not all gay and lesbian people are the same, not all white people are the same, not all Christians are the same, not all Jews are the same, not all Muslims are the same, not all human beings are the same. And so we take a cognitive shortcut and we suffer from lazy brain. And lazy brain means we don't really want to work at it. We would just as soon live with our stereotypes. And so we take these shortcuts rather than saying, I haven't even taken the time really to get to know my neighbor. So we lived in Farmington, Michigan for 18 years, and we lived across the street from the Uhelskis. And Bob and Janine, it took me 16 years to get to know Bob. And my take on Bob was that he was an intellectual snob. He had a doctorate in history and taught at the best private school in Southeast Michigan. Well, in fact, he was introverted. In fact, he was a guy who liked to work with wood. In fact, he was a very thoughtful guy who was really kind of waiting to talk to me about religion and the church, but we just didn't get there. So I took a cognitive shortcut. You see what I'm trying to say? I took a cognitive shortcut and made all of these assumptions, had all these stereotypes of Bob, none of which were true. It takes a lot of work and a lot of effort to move beyond stereotypes. These are two young women that I know very well. One of them is my daughter. The other is my daughter-in-law. The young woman in the wedding dress with fair skin and blonde hair, like I used to have, is not my daughter. She's my daughter-in-law. And she is Jewish. And she's killing law school. And the woman on the right, as I see it, is our youngest daughter, Ashley. Now, if you didn't know that Ashley was my daughter before today, I can pretty much guess that you would have thought, look at that. There's Pastor Brad's daughter. She's got blonde hair. She's got fair skin. It must be her. Well, in fact, it's our daughter-in-law. Ashley tells us that African Americans often feel invisible in a crowd of white people. Other African Americans have said to us that they feel invisible in a crowd of white people. Not long after we moved to Pickerington, and not long after I started as the pastor of this wonderful congregation, it was a Sunday morning in August, and pretty much the building had cleared, and the doors were locked, and our youngest, Ashley, who was not white, by the way, came to those doors right there, as she told us, and tried to open them and couldn't get them open. And she told us that at these other doors, there was a small crowd, 5 or 6 of white people. Now, her perception was that she was invisible to them, and her perception was that she didn't matter until people knew that she was the pastor's daughter. That's her perception. Now, I told her, and I believe, that the folks who were there were not meaning to not see her. But that's part of the challenge for us as white folks, because we don't see and we don't think about it. And so I suggest that it's something in terms of all meaning all, that we open our eyes and our hearts and our perspectives and not do the lazy brain thing. So I have a confession. Confession is good for the soul. Jesus once said, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Well, here's my confession. I am a racist who is in recovery. Now, my spouse said that was not something good to put up on the screen for 20 seconds. Oh, well. So if it's something you want to talk to me about more, I'd be happy to do it. What I'm trying to say is that it's in my bones, okay? It's the way that I've been conditioned. I think it's biological. I think it's beyond just attitude and blind spots. I think that it's a part of who we are, and I am particularly racist toward African Americans. There are times when I'm with Ashley, and it's as though it's an addiction, and I can't help myself. So I'm asking God to give me the courage to be honest about that and to say, God, I want to do better than this. I want to see the world more broadly than I do, and I believe that with God, all things are possible as we think about living into an inclusive community. So you see these letters all the time, and they mean something, although I think they've become maybe even trite for some people. LGBTQ+, yeah, okay, all about it. But I want to make it personal this morning. This is Pastor Dale's story. Summer of 1982, I was working on staff at Camp Luther on Lake Erie, and Pastor Dale came by himself to serve as the camp chaplain for the week. I got to know Pastor Dale pretty well and really enjoyed getting to know him. And then in 1985, Becky and I moved to Toledo for my seminary internship at All Saints Lutheran Church, and Dale, that turned out, was a pastor of a church in Sylvania, Olivet Lutheran Church. So Dale reached out to me, and we spent a lot of time that year. We played racquetball. We had lunch together. We would have a good martini now and again, but he welcomed me into the area. Well, came back and finished seminary, and then we returned to Toledo in 1987. Well, Dale was there, and he reached out to me again, and we played racquetball almost every week and had lunch. One particular day after playing racquetball, and we were sitting at Bob Evans, of all places, having lunch, having a salad, Dale said, Brad, I've got something I need to tell you. Okay. He started to well up with tears, and he said, I need you to know that I'm gay. My response was to say, Dale, I know that. I've known that for a long time, and I love you. So that was a deepening of that all are welcome, all means all relationship. Fast forward to the year 2002. Dale had met a man with whom he became a partner. His name was Kin, African American of all things. And the two of them got to the place where their relationship was deep, and they wanted it to be blessed by God. So in the summer of 2003, Pastor Ron Lee, who was pastor at Peace Church Kahana, and I, in Dale and Kin's backyard, we blessed their relationship. And it was a good thing to do. It was a faithful thing to do. It was the right thing to do. I was talking to somebody about it, and they said, how could you do that, and how do you understand that? And I said, I don't understand my own marriage half the time. That's my problem, not Becky's. But I don't understand it. So what if I don't understand Dale and Ken's relationship? So what? That's none of my business. I know that these two guys love each other. I know they're both dear friends of ours. All are welcome. All means all. Cool end of that story, when marriage became legal in the D.C. area, they took a train and they got married, including the license. My daughter Kristen has, like many people, a Facebook page. And this week, she had this on her Facebook page. There is no greater disability in society than the inability to see a person as more. You get it? No greater disability than to see a person as more. This week on Facebook, there was a thing around kind of celebrating people with rare health challenges, and Kristen posted that on her Facebook page. Our granddaughter Quinn was diagnosed at birth with a rare genetic disorder called Wolf-Hirschhorn syndrome, 1 in 50,000 births. Hashtag care about rare. I told Kristen this week, the best experiences in life are the rare experiences. So what a gift to be able to celebrate the life of this little person. Quinn will be 2 years old on April 16th. She is now able to stand on her own. She's now able to walk with some help. She is alert. She sees the world. We know that she's going to have cognitive challenges during the course of her life. We know that she'll be small-ish as a little person. She is the kind of person that Jesus is calling us to welcome, whether it's our precious little Quinn or somebody else. All means that we welcome crippled people and people with challenges and blind and poor and all of that. Quinn needs this community so much, and we need Quinn and others like Quinn so much. All are welcomed. All means all, and all means Quinn and others like you and me. I want to read this to you as we wrap up. We extend a special welcome to those who are single, married, divorced, separated, straight, gay, transgendered, mighty rich, mighty poor, or mightily trying. We welcome those who are crying newborns, skinny as a rail, or aiming to lose a few. We extend a special welcome if you can sing like Andre Bocelli or can only sing into a bucket. You're welcome if you're just browsing, just woke up, or just got out of jail. We don't care if you are a cradle Lutheran or a cafeteria Christian, or if you're not sure what to be or believe. We don't care if you've only seen the inside of a church through YouTube or haven't been in church since your BFF from high school got married. We extend a special welcome to those over 60 who haven't grown up yet, and to teenagers who think they're already grown up. We welcome soccer moms and dads, NASCAR moms and dads, starving artists, tree huggers, latte sippers, card-carrying NRA members, and card-burning socialists. We welcome vegetarians and junk food aficionados. We welcome those who are in recovery or still addicted. We welcome you if you're having problems, or you're down in the dumps, or if you don't like organized religion. Hey, many of us have been there too. We extend a special welcome if you blew all of your offering money at the casino, still think the earth is flat, work too hard, can't spell, or because grandma is in town and wanted you to go to church. We extend a special welcome to those who are inked, pierced, both, or undecided. You are welcome if you need a special prayer right now, don't trust religion, yet feel a spiritual tug, or got lost in traffic and wound up here by mistake. We welcome seekers, finders, tourists, wanderers, doubters, bleeding hearts, and you. This is your home.